Okay, our next video is perceptual organization. So let's talk about how we organize our objects when we actually are processing them. The main idea is Gestalt psychology, and this is that our brain wants to organize information into meaningful wholes. It doesn't want us to see things in separate parts. It wants to put everything together to make a large picture of it. This is the idea that the whole is different from the sum of its parts, right? So the first is FigureGround, the organization of the visual fields into objects or figures that stand out from their surroundings. So we like to see some sort of depth. So in this case, if we are looking at figure and ground, one of the, if you are looking at the pants here, that is your figure, right? And then the ground is the floor back here. However, if you look at the floor as your figure, you are seeing a star, and then the pants are your ground, okay? So we like to separate things into figures and backgrounds. The next are the grouping discrepancies or grouping patterns. The first is closure. This is the idea that we like to form a whole. So in order for us to look at this, we see a full rectangle, not these little lines here. So our brain closes these images up, and we still know that this is one figure. Proximity is the idea that we group things according to what they're closest to. So we would see this as one figure rather than individual dots here. Whereas this one we would see as three figures. We wouldn't see this as one whole because they're separated from each other. The next is continuation. Continuation is the idea that we understand that a figure is going to continue even though part of it is blocked out. So just because this key is in front of this one, we don't think that this is one separate image here and this is one separate image here. We know that this behind it is one key. And then finally, similarity back here. I know it's a little bit behind my face, but you get the idea that we would group this white, then black, right? Because they're similar to each other. Our brain organizes things so that it makes it a little bit easier for us to distinguish what is going on, okay? The other form of perception that we use is depth perception. This allows us to judge distances. We think that depth perception is innate, and we know this because Gibson and Walk suggested that infants who can crawl have depth perception. And the way they did this is they created the visual cliff. Okay, so this is a box that the infant was on that was, they could see the checkered floor here, and then down below this glass, there's also a checkered floor. And so the infants would have their mom over here, and they would be coerced to come over to their mom. But when they hit this glass here, they stopped. They did not continue to crawl because they could see that that was further away and that they might fall. This is the idea of a visual cliff, okay? So that's our depth perception, that we are able to judge distances by what is closer to us and what is further away. The next type of organization that we use are monocular cues. Monocular cues mean that you only need one eye to determine that cue. You don't need both. So you could cover one eye and we'd still be able to determine these rules. The first is interposition. This is the idea that objects can block other objects, and that means that we can determine that that one is closer. So for example, we perceive this blue person here closer to us than the red person because the blue person is blocking the red. Okay, that's interposition. The next is linear perspective. It's like one of the first things you learn in art class, right? To draw railroad tracks, getting to a point at the end of your page. This is the idea that parallel lines appear to converge in the distance, so come together to a point in the distance. And the more the lines converge, the greater the distance is, okay? So this seems very far away because of this linear perspective. The next is relative size. if two objects are similar in size, we perceive one that casts a smaller retinal image as farther away. So for example, we know that pencils are about the same size as each other. So if we look at this pencil versus this pencil, we would determine that this one on the left is closer to us because it's bigger than this one, okay? And then texture gradient. Texture gradient is the idea that things that are closer to us appear to have more texture than those that are far away from us. So you can see these buildings are fuzzy in the background. That's because we perceive them as being far away from us. The things that are very close, like this man, we can see the buttons on his jacket. We can see the textures because they appear to be closer to us. Okay, binocular cues are the idea that we need both eyes to determine these cues. So if you cover one eye, you won't be able to determine these cues, okay? The first is convergence. So this is the idea that when you move something closer and closer to your face, your eyes, your retinas, and your irises are going to move inward. Basically, you're going cross-eyed when the object is closer to you. And then when something is farther away, your eyes are going to move outward from your nose to see those faraway objects. The next is retinal disparity. This is the idea that when images from two eyes differ, the greater the difference between the two objects, the closer the objects. So if you look at your two fingers half an inch from your face, about half an inch apart, about 5 inches away from your face, you will see a finger sausage, right? So you are going to see them together. So go like this. And if you put them about 5 inches away from you, you are going to start to see a finger sausage when they converge, right? We'll try it in class together. It'll be a little bit easier for you to determine. But this is the idea of retinal disparity, that our two eyes see something completely different.